It is said that the greatest trick of the devil was convincing people he does not exist. Perhaps his second greatest act of deception was in convincing people that money does. There's nothing that exists that can be called money. Money is always an illusion and always will be, meaning no one will ever be able to point to something physical and assert that this physical thing is money. At minimum, context will have to be provided. Manifesting money as something we can feel and carry and store up has made a quite simple phrase impossible to understand, using conventional wisdom. Jesus stated that where your treasure is, there will be your heart, also. Sapiens think the reverse is true. If you love something with your heart, then you treasure it. But the Bible is trying to tell us something here about money. It is also saying something about love. Sapiens do not hear the teaching. Treasure is real. Treasure is property. Treasure can be and is accumulated. Treasure is fought over and died for. But property is not portable. Land, buildings, machinery and many other things that are valuable are fixed spatially and are of low value compared to their mass and size. Diamonds and gold are more portable and served as a means of exchange. Gold was useful for commercial transactions, but diamonds were more useful when large sums needed to be transported great distances. A means of exchange ought to be thought of as an asset or property with divisibility. But the ownership of property comes with increased risk as property can be stolen. Not having property leaves one in danger of starvation. Having property makes one a target of those facing starvation. Turning a suitable asset into money was not just a way to make wealth portable, it was a way to reduce threats against property theft. Paper money could be more easily hidden and was less obvious than a bag of gold coins or flocks of sheep. Obviously, if we call gold coins and paper bills money, that is what they are, by definition. These things are physical and so visible. But what we actually see is the asset, the thing of value. We call the thing money because it is utilized as a medium of exchanges. But currency is a medium of exchange because it is an asset modified to make it more easily transferred. 2. And it is, but that is not what we are seeing. Gold coin to a goldsmith is just gold. Gold coin to someone who does not understand money, sees gold in the form of a coin, but they are not seen to be a form of currency. The trouble is, when we use assets as money, we put these assets and ourselves at risk. If we were all compelled to use gold as currency, the risk of being robbed would increase exponentially. All assets are owned by someone, otherwise they would not have value. It is the ownership component that gives things their value. Value compensates for the work the buyer does not have to do. That the seller only worked a few hours is immaterial. The price is defined by the work the buyer would need to do if he or she chooses not to pay the seller's price. When hiring a locksmith to break into a safe, it is not the amount of work the locksmith does that sets the price, it is the cost to the homeowner if he or she chooses not to use the services of a professional. Therein lays the problem of currency. Because currency is an asset, it is a commercial product. Currency is manufactured. When manufactured by the state, it can be spent into the economy. The same thing could happen when banks print their own money. It was said that local banks would lend out so much that when a depositor wanted to make a sizable withdrawal, the funds were not always available. But this is not likely the situation. The more probable event was that the bank would print and spend money until the town realized they were flooded with worthless script, and when they demanded property from the banker, such as gold, he had nothing but his fancy suits, house and other consumer goods to back up the script he had been issuing. Spending money into the economy is akin to making small loans to the seller of goods and services. The state does this all the time, but on a larger scale. The state does not need to provide anything in compensation for what it buys. It can force a third party to accept the money it created as payment for real property. That being said, logistic church is able to issue real money, without creating inflation. Loss of value in a currency ought to be understood as unclaimable value. People are getting hold of property they do not have the means or will to pay for. Logistic churches prevent free riding. 2 or 3 people are sufficient to set up a church. The mission or purpose of a church is to do works of faith, in faith, to build the faith. These works of faith done in faith, create the fruits of faith. This is in a general sense, the church, but the church is us working in faith. To avoid the circularity, we need to introduce an objective correlate of the fruits of faith. Logistic church quantifies the value our faith creates, which in the vernacular, is money. Money represents faith because it represents the trust we have in one another. This is not a strange or anomalous interpretation. Being in Babylon may make such talk sound strange, but then Babylon is the place with inflation and a church being overrun by the demonic forces of Satan. A people with faith work together without a sense of fear, because risk has been eliminated. This is easy to say but impossible to do without reconcilable accounts. If the church's accounts cannot be reconciled, arrears will be introduced. Someone will fudge the numbers and eventually fear of being cheated will infect the church and trust will fade. Works in faith does mean works done in the context of a people of faith, but this tactically requires a unit of account. One of the devil's most successful ploys was confusing unit of account with means of exchange. A means of exchange is just a commodity monetized. A unit of account is a unit of measure used to quantify and track the value of labor added to an asset. 2 things are needed to have a unit of account. First of all, we need a system of accounts which implies or necessitates a keeper of the accounts, in this case the logistic church. And we need to set the base quantity or measurable event on which the unit will be extracted. Every member of a logistic church is issued an account. The account records all value created and all value consumed as credits to the account and as debits to the account. The base event that gives us credits is the living wage. For expository purposes this is set at $20 per hour, but the actual value is of no importance. Where and when possible, the average production per hour is factored in. This would link the unit of account recorded to units per hour per person times the value of an average unit. Value added to assets is equity, and equity is measured in terms of preferred shares. The unit of account is the preferred shares, or preferred shares are used as the logistic church's unit of account. As a unit of account, preferred shares can be contracted to prefers with the symbol designating the unit as a type of currency. All work done for the logistic church is compensated by equity added to the seller's account. An hour of work done for the logistic church, or its buyers, is compensated for by a deposit of 20.00 credited to the seller's account. Labor can be sold directly as a service, or indirectly through the means of products. Initially, members help one another out more or less informally. Businesses are set up by the logistic church purchasing the needed capital from sellers. Prefers are used as payment for all capital purchases. Those who are hired to perform the services or work of the business are paid for in prefers. Those who use the services pay the logistic church in prefers. The logistic church is always the payer and the payee. The logistic church is responsible for maintaining and reconciling the accounts of buyers and sellers. Because the buyer who does not work increases his debit account, the logistic church can call him or her to account. The logistic church can and must employ steps to ensure all accounts are reconciled. This eliminates inflation and debt as well as inequality.